Welcome to the Missions Podcast, the show that explores your hard questions about missions, theology, and practice to help goers think and thinkers go. We're coming to you again from the Exhibitor Hall at Together for the Gospel, the final T4G Conference 2022 in Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm here with my friend, Ryan Robertson, president of Reaching and Teaching.
How you doing, Alex?
Good to have you here.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
And we've probably wanted to have you on for a little while, and this is the first time we've actually been able to make it work.
We finally made it.
That's right.
We finally made it.
So let's just start real simple.
Yeah.
What is Reaching and Teaching? I'm not going to ask what you do, because I would imagine it involves reaching and teaching.
There you go. So Reaching and Teaching is a missions organization. We have short-term ministry, long-term ministry opportunities available. Short-term, we send teams of pastors and qualified men to go train pastors around the world where there is just a lack of theological education and pastoral resourcing. We send teams of women to go disciple women in the context of local churches and try and foster up really good women's discipleship in local churches as well. Long-term, we're sending our people overseas to do one of three things. We want to see people make mature disciples. We want to see them establish healthy churches. And then we want to see them train local leaders. And so those are our three core tasks: making mature disciples, establishing healthy churches, and training local leaders.
Yeah. So there's a lot of missions agencies that are here at this conference. There's a lot of missions organizations just out there right now, period. So why Reaching and Teaching versus any other missions organization? There's a lot of big ones and small ones and medium ones.
Yeah, I think the way I describe Reaching and Teaching is really a boutique kind of mentality. We're not going to be a missions agency for everybody, nor do we want to be. I think specifically people who are reformed in their soteriology. And
say that 5 times fast.
10 times fast. So reformed in their soteriology, and then people who, as they look at the local church, are Baptistic in their ecclesiology. So if you think about 9 marks of a healthy church, and that's really our sweet spot in terms of we want to see healthy churches. This is how we define healthy church. And we want to work with people who believe the same big God theology as we do. The reason we say that, Alex, is because we think teaming people up overseas is a big deal. It takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of resourcing. Churches are investing a lot of trust in us. And to get people who believe the same things about important things is really essential for the health of those churches for generations to come overseas. So that's who we are.
Now, you are in Louisville, Kentucky. That's where you're based. And are all of your people remote? Or in-person, brick and mortar? Yeah,
we don't have any brick and mortar. We have a virtual office. We may end up having a brick and mortar office one day, but as long as we can prolong that, I'm happy to do that and save some money.
So the reason I ask that is because we're right across from the Southern Seminary booth.
Right here.
You guys are not far from Southern Seminary.
Not at all.
No secret, Southern Seminary, bastion of solid thinking, of an investment in the truth.
That's right.
Understanding that. But there's also a strong reputation of a lot of that does, unfortunately, and I think there's a heart for missions, but it's true for any seminary. There is inertia where sometimes that can stay in the U.S. That can stay in our churches instead of spilling out to the nations as much as we want it to do so. And I know that's close to your heart, is being able to take some of the wisdom and some of just the brilliance, honestly, in a city like this and the people that study here, and send that to the nations. So what is that interplay like with seminary students and others that have thought and studied seriously as you're wanting to send them out?
Yeah, the really important thing for us in a community like Louisville is our relationships with the local churches here. So when I describe our soteriology and our ecclesiology, that describes a lot of the churches that are in Louisville. A lot of them are that way in part because of the influence of Southern Seminary and the theological education there. And so for us, the connecting piece to those students isn't so much Southern Seminary, it's their local churches. And so what we're trying to do is just work with churches to say, hey, if you've got a guy with a PhD who has a heart for the nations, maybe he's best placed training up theologians overseas in a specific context versus someone coming out of like a boys' college who's 21, 22, wants to go to the unreached language groups. Then we're going to try and connect them with our friends at Radius and say, this is your next level of training. But what we're seeing is good theologians, whether it's an undergrad or a grad level at Southern, wanting to do really good things for the Lord around the nations. And so their theology is driving them to the nations, which I'm encouraged by. That's what was going on in England back with William Carey and those brothers.
Absolutely.
So here we are again.
There's been a lot of talk about missions at this conference, and I think that's good because we've come together for the gospel. Now we recognize, all right, this is the last time we're coming together in this context, but what should we be about as we go back out into the world? One of the things that David Platt shared in his talk, and he pulled up the map. We've all seen the map, those of us that work in the missions world.
That's right.
Right, the color-coded map from Joshua Project. So what are your feelings about the color-coded map? Because what you're doing is not always in those red places of the least access to the gospel. A lot of it is in the yellow and the green places that are already reached.
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting thing. For us, it really comes down to we want to see healthy churches all around the world. I want to see a healthy church in a place that maybe is more than 2% evangelized, but we can't yet identify that there's a healthy local church there that we would say, yeah, that's going to self-propagate in a really healthy way. But we also want to work in those places that don't have a healthy local church or even have had the gospel proclaimed in their language. And so for us, we look at a map like that, we're like, yeah, we do certain things in the red areas, we do certain things in those kind of green or yellow areas. And then I think the other thing that's important from our perspective is we've got brothers that are working in those green and yellow, brothers and sisters, but those brothers that are working alongside pastors, there's prosperity heresy teaching going on all over the place. Prosperity heresy, that's a Zane Pratt quote. I love how he says that. It's not prosperity gospel.
It's not prosperity gospel.
It's prosperity heresy.
It's bad news. It's not good news.
Horrible news. But we've got folks that are working in Latin America. Absolutely. There we go. We've got folks that are working in those areas, Alex, that they're looking around them saying there's never been theological education. There are movement methodologists that have went through those areas and quote unquote started a movement. They've submitted a report to some website and all of a sudden we're going to mark it green. When we go back into those areas, they're just not green and they're just not yellow.
And I think it's helpful to have unreached people groups as a metric, because there is a natural sense in which you should prioritize. Like, if some people have possibly heard the gospel before and others we know for sure that they've never been given the chance to respond to the gospel. We need to make sure that somebody's going to them. I think even just the colors aren't helpful. Like,
no.
Green makes it seem like it's okay. Like, maybe it should be purple. I don't know. But anyway, that's kind of an aside. But
I think you're exactly right in there. And I think one of the things we have to be careful to do is when we look at green and yellow places, are they in a place where they're going to be able to send workers overseas as well to participate with some of us more?
And that's when the task is finished, when they're owning the mission for themselves.
Absolutely. And we've got a team right now in Argentina who's working with a team potentially in North Africa to send workers over to North Africa to work alongside Americans and Spaniards.
We do the same, and frankly, a lot of those people from Latin America do better in those Middle Eastern contexts than the typical American does, because of all the cultural similarities in some ways.
And so some of our work in those green or yellow areas should be encouraging those churches to be the healthiest that they can be. It's just different.
Both and.
It's a both and, not an either or.
And here's the last question too. So you guys are a little bit of a boutique. You care about people that have a high ecclesiology, that are reformed in their soteriology, the things you laid out at the beginning. Do you see inertia among the reformed, and why do they not send missionaries as much? Is that an illusion or not? Because our show exists to help goers think and thinkers go. We want to bridge these worlds of people that think seriously, whether you're a 5-point Calvinist or not, but people that think seriously about doctrine, and people that care about putting boot leather to their faith. And unfortunately, we find sometimes there's a gap there, but is there in your experience?
Yeah, within the group of churches that we're finding ourselves serving more and more, we're not seeing that inertia. We're seeing a ton of excitement. You think about this conference, Together for the Gospel, you got a brother like Mark Dever who has a huge heart for missions. His influence within the last 25 years in terms of local churches in the U.S., we're seeing that carry out biblically to having a heart for the nations. You've got brothers like Max Stiles and John Fulmer that we've known for over 2 decades now, have done really faithful work. Reports are coming back, people are being stirred up. I'm thinking back to the early days of the great century of missions. That's what was going on. You had faithful brothers who had similar ecclesiology and soteriology coming back, giving reports, stirring up churches, and churches are saying, well, we want to send people too. I think that's where we're at right now, Alex, in the Reformed Baptistic arena that we get to work in, is people are hungry, they're ready. Southern Seminary is training up folks, other good Baptist seminaries are as well. I think we're going to look back at this period and think, wow, the Reformed Baptist churches were doing a lot of really good work, and their theology drove them there.
And whatever tribe exactly that you fall into, and we have a mixture of people that would listen to the show, I like what you're saying there basically, which is that if you have a heart for the local church, whether it's 9 marks or whatever system that you want to use to describe what a healthy church is, it's not that or missions.
No.
Is that this leads to missions.
And one of the things that I want to encourage everybody, we're Together for the Gospel. I've got friends in other organizations that have different convictions on some pretty important things that would make us not be able to church plant together.
Yeah.
But we're on the missions highway together. We got different on-ramps.
Yes.
And I'm so happy to meet with these brothers and sisters overseas, hug them, eat meals with them.
Yeah.
We're just not going to church plant together, and that's okay.
That is okay.
And we need to be together in that.
Yeah. One of ABWE, and the Missions Podcast is from ABWE, one of our values is that our lives and our possessions are for sharing.
Yes.
And so we want to see Reaching and Teaching win. We want to see the IMB succeed. We want to see ABWE succeed, of course. I'm wearing a Launch Point t-shirt. That's a ministry of ABWE.
That's amazing.
For those that you're listening on audio, we've got all sorts of brands that we're surrounded by, but it's all for the kingdom together.
That's exactly right. We're so thankful for ABWE and the ministry that you guys are doing. We're really happy to have our pom-poms and cheering you guys on as well.
So how can people find out about Reaching and Teaching and follow you?
Yeah, so they can go to www.rtim.org.
RTIM.
Yep, and they changed my Twitter handle. It was unprofessional before, but
I noticed that.
Yeah,
it's,
you saw
what is it now, Ryan RTIM?
So it's RTIM Ryan, at RTIM Ryan. It used to be Big Double R. It's a nickname my pastor up in Canada had given me. I had to drop it to be professional, so it's at RTIM Ryan.
A little bit of behind the scenes. Our camera guy right now, he's been giving me a hard time about the fact that all of these people that we've been interviewing, all of their Twitter handles are like Zane Pratt, Alex Kochman. Like there's nobody that's like, Big Double R.
I thought it was fun.
Make Twitter handles fun again. I think
we need to do that. We need to reclaim Twitter.
That's right. Take dominion of Twitter.
That's right.
For the glory of God, together for the gospel.
And we can be fun doing it.
That's right.
All right, brothers. Thanks so much.
For being on.
Good hanging out.
And check out Reaching and Teaching. We'll continue to bring you content from Together for the Gospel. Until next time, the Missions Podcast is a ministry of ABWE. To get more, go to missionspodcast.com, or you can go to missionspodcast.com/support in order to partner with us. And until next time, thanks for watching and listening.